I believe that female leaders bring a different dimension to politics. Women bear the children, women traditionally look after the children. So women are concerned about the education their children will get, they're concerned about the health facilities, they're concerned about employment. So I think that the dimension that a woman brings is very different, and I see the rise of women politicians as essential to the moderation of societies. And I see democratization, which gives the right of vote to both men and women, as essential to countering terrorism, extremism, and militancy. At the same time, I have a great regard for male leaders because my father was a male leader, and there was so much that I learned from him. So I think that men and women, both given representation, can really work together to take us into the 21st century in a new era of hope. That we change the dynamics for Pakistan, and we change the dynamics for South Asia and for the Muslim world. When I became Prime Minister, women could never aspire to leadership positions. But after that, several Muslim countries have had women leaders. And even in Saudi Arabia recently, women's rights have improved from what they were. You know, politics is about having a common view. For me, I don't look upon politics in a personal way. But for us, it's not an issue of tribalism or badla or let's get to each other. No. It's about issues. We need to bring our people together by giving them a just distribution of resources. And we need to take our army out of the politics of Pakistan. This has to be done in a proper way. The civilian bureaucracy has to meet the challenges of a modern era so that the framework can be created. For us, the repeal of the laws that are discriminatory towards women is about the rights of women. And what are we going to do about the rights of women? I think women do have a different attitude towards some of the issues. For example, a clean environment, we want to save the planet. So on a larger scale, we want a clean planet, but also on a smaller scale, we want a clean environment for our people, you know, where the dirt and the filth is picked up so that the flies don't carry disease, where the sewage drain doesn't mix up with the drinking water and lead to hepatitis. Because it's sad to say that in my country, despite the aid that we're getting, the human issues have been neglected. And I think that's part of military rule. The military doesn't understand the needs of the people. And I think political leaders do, but especially women who are mothers, who are the members of the society that actually have to make sure that the children are looked after and fed and the home is run, appreciate the issues of cleanliness, of health, of basic things like clean drinking water.
It was in Karachi that Benazir Bhutto was born, and it was in Karachi that her passion for politics was fostered. Her father, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, was a wealthy landowner and acted in various areas of Pakistani politics, finally becoming Prime Minister in 1973, the country's first non-military leader. It was the start of the Bhutto political dynasty. Benazir Bhutto was the eldest of 4 children. She attended school in the United States and in England, graduating from Oxford University. In 1977, her father was deposed and executed 2 years later by military dictator General Zia al-Haq. Along with other members of the Bhutto family, Benazir was placed under house arrest. In 1985, martial law was ended, paving the way for Benazir Bhutto's triumphant return to Pakistan a year later. More than 1 million people came to greet her, an example of the clout she held as the eldest member of Pakistan's most powerful family. It was as champion of the poor that Bhutto established her cult-like status. She led the Pakistan People's Party to power 2 years later, the first woman to head an Islamic country.
I took this decision on the last day of my father's life, when I decided that I would continue his work for a democratic Pakistan. And since that day, I've never looked back. And I think the clear message is that the PPP is a party of the poor. Basically, the PPP and its leadership have suffered. And because we have suffered, we know the sufferings of ordinary people. And it has always been our aim and our desire to end poverty, hunger, exploitation. But I may add that Transparency International has just come out and said that corruption is worse under the military dictatorship than it has ever been under a democratic government. That military dictatorships have treated Pakistan as a piece of real estate to rent out to the highest bidder. That military dictatorships have sustained themselves historically by a rentier class mentality. I mean, that's what I've seen academic reports on, that can the country sustain itself through rentier politics, sometimes using SEATO, sometimes using CENTO, sometimes using the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, sometimes using Osama bin Laden to rent out a problem to get support? Or do we change direction to build the intrinsic strengths of our own country? We have got to have a strong look at ourselves and see that can these rentier politics still play out? Or do we have to change our direction? And I think we need to change our direction. We need to go back to Qaid-e-Azam. We need to go back to the pluralistic, tolerant nation state that invests in its people. I think it's very important for us to build peace with our neighbors, Afghanistan and Pakistan. If we have safe neighbors, we will have safety within our country, and we need safety within our country. Well, my children are very proud of Pakistan. They're very proud of being Pakistanis. But at the same time, I like to keep my children out of politics. And I think that children should first pay attention to their education. They should be disciplined. They should be good-mannered. They should be respectful to their elders. And that's what I try to do with my children. I want them to study hard, as I want all the children of Pakistan to do, because I believe that education is the key to our own country's progress. The biggest challenge right now that Pakistan faces, as well as the larger world community, has to do with terrorism. And it worries me as a Pakistani that whenever a terrorist is caught, somehow the tracks lead back to Islamabad. Whether it's a shoe bomber, whether it's the 7/7 attacks in England, somehow or the other, the tracks lead back. Whether it's the CEO of Al-Qaeda, Khalid Sheikh, who's arrested. And that's not right. And we have to tackle terrorism. We have to make it very clear that the laws of Pakistan must be respected, and nobody can use our soil to plot or plan or carry out any activity against any other country. That's the first priority, to make our region free of terrorism. And my party feels that there's a cycle, that you have the Pakistani army go in to try and control the situation, and then suddenly you have a ceasefire. And then again the whole situation blows up with greater intensity. And that's the way we are looking at it. We call it the 3 R's: rest, recreation, and rearming. So we see that the cycle is going to get worse. But if 80,000 men of the Pakistani armed forces can't tackle a bunch of Afghan and Arab fighters that came initially to seek refuge in our soil, then something is deeply wrong. And we really need to go to the people of the area. I know that in Karachi, we went to the people of the area. We said, come and help us. This is your area. Come and help us save Karachi, because we can't save Karachi without the people's help. And slowly and surely people came forward. And so too in Waziristan. We've got to go to the people. And I hope it's not too late. We know the Taliban were bombed out of Afghanistan. And we do not want a situation to come about when we say that we as a nation are unable to tackle this threat. Because if we say that, we will invite others by creating a vacuum. The Taliban did not rule the roost when I was Prime Minister of Pakistan. And they were confined largely to Kandahar. They were involved with the United Nations. But after my overthrow, the Taliban changed character. But unfortunately, after the overthrow of my government, they decided to invite in Osama bin Laden. They allowed Osama bin Laden to set up training camps. And they allowed him to recruit young men from all over the Muslim world. And they allowed him to kill Iranian diplomats and to declare war on America. And I remember that critical year very clearly, because I was leader of the opposition in the Pakistani Assembly. And at that time, I called upon the government of the day to break relations with the Taliban, to tell the Taliban that either you stop this nonsense of letting your soil be used against third countries, and if you don't stop that, then you're a danger to Pakistan. And in my speech, I said that you people call this strategic depth. It's not strategic depth. It's strategic threat to Pakistan. And we must disassociate with the Taliban unless the Taliban start to disassociate with such policies. And I could see that a terrible day was coming. When I became Prime Minister, we began the process of the information revolution by lifting the ban on fax machines, bringing satellite dishes, digital pagers, mobile telephones. We deregulated the economy. We allowed the banks to give easy credit. We brought in investment banks. And we did this deregulation to open up the markets and to open up opportunities. And after we did it, South Asia followed. And after that, the Middle East followed. These were all public sector dominated economies. But the transformation came because of the PPP victory in 1988. We see the young leaders in the Middle East now, like King Abdullah of Jordan, King of Morocco, King of Qatar. These young leaders are also now trying to open up their societies and democratize. So what PPP actually did in terms of democratization, in terms of the information revolution, in terms of undoing the domination of the public sector and opening up the markets and opening up the opportunities, is being adopted far and wide, not just in Pakistan by its own critics, but across the Muslim world.
So the average person in Pakistan, they've all suffered. Basically, they are without water, they're without electricity, they're still poor, hapless, and they keep looking to these ever-changing rulers. I mean, they have nothing to look forward to. What hope do you give them?
You know something? That's a superficial view, but it's not the real view.
What?
Let me finish. The real view is that every dictatorship brought power blackdowns, whether it was Ziaul Haq or subsequently. But it was the PPP government that changed direction by attracting the investment through boilerplate contracts that enabled the best people to come forward and invest in energy. Energy that people were willing to invest in for 6 rupees per unit for the first 10 years and then 4 rupees per unit after that. And now the regime is begging people to come and invest with 11 rupees per unit, but nobody's coming because there's a difference in leadership. Let me point out to you that under the International Labour Organization reports, the largest number of employment took place under PPP governments. But when the PPP governments were overthrown, unemployment rose. So too with the rates of literacy, so too with the rates of poverty. So maybe we should leave these decisions of whether things are different or not different to the people of Pakistan. Because the people of Pakistan know when jobs are available for them. The people of Pakistan know when development is taking place for them. The people of Pakistan know when there's a government that comes and asks them what their problem is and tries to resolve it.
You know, the hapless lives of the people of Pakistan have remained the same. And what I would like for you to do is to offer that hope that how does it change? It does. I can sit with...
Young man, you've got to first of all see whether it changed in the past or not. You don't have hope because you didn't live in Pakistan through those 13-hour power shutdowns that the rest of us did. But when the PPP came, it brought investment. We built the Ghazi Bharota Dam. We were building small dams and we brought power projects. You are talking about outages now. And I am telling you that there is hope because there is the PPP, which knows that without power, you can't run businesses. You can't run an economy. And it is the PPP. When I became Prime Minister, people couldn't get a telephone without waiting 20 years. And I said, how can people set up businesses if they can't even make a call? That's when we brought the mobile phones. After we brought the mobile phones, then South Asia and the Middle East followed. We were the first country, whether it's power shutdowns, whether it's mobile phones, whether it's fertilizers on time to allow agricultural production to increase, whether it's increasing GNP ratio to be spent on education, it's the People's Party that does this. Maybe people don't know it yet. Maybe there was so much rumor and propaganda that people weren't willing to look at it. But ordinary people who lived under the PPP know the difference. And that's why we say, let there be elections. Let people of Pakistan decide how they were under one government and how they are under another government.
You forgave the party, the person that put your husband behind bars?
You know, I just don't want to go down that route. I know where you're taking me and I don't want to go down that route. What I want to focus on is that the PPP and I don't look at personalities. We look at issues. We fight for our principles. I'm proud to say, as a PPP worker, not as a PPP leader, as an ordinary worker of the PPP, as an ordinary worker of Qaeda-e-Awam Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, I am proud to say that I stood for principles. And I think that everybody in the PPP, we pride ourselves on fighting for principles, fighting for a cause, fighting for a mission, fighting for what we believe in. and that is a federal, democratic, egalitarian Pakistan where the provinces and the people have their rights.
Shock and disbelief. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto was shot dead as she was getting into her car after addressing a rally of her party's supporters.
It would be Benazir Bhutto's last public appearance, seen stepping into a heavily guarded vehicle leaving a political rally. The next moments,
and a crowd estimated at a few hundred is swarming around Benazir Bhutto's car.
People don't have the luxury in life of knowing what's going to happen, but I took a decision and I've lived with that decision.
If it means sacrificing our lives, if it means sacrificing our liberty to save Pakistan, then we are prepared to risk our lives and we are prepared to risk our liberty. But we are not prepared to surrender our great nation to the militants.
I'm taking the risk with my life, and I'm taking the risk in facing the dangers in my country because I believe that all the children of Pakistan are as dear to me as my own children. I want to see the children of Pakistan bequeathed a better future than the children of my generation were. So I say, yes, we were humans. We made mistakes. My first term, we were very inexperienced. Young people came into politics who had never been in politics before. But we were sincere in our intent, sincere in our purpose, and we must be compared not to an ideal vision, but we must be compared to others who have governed in Pakistan. And therefore I say to young people of your generation that I hope you do a better job than my generation did, because leadership must pass to your hands, and I hope that you learn from our experiences to translate it into a better society for our people.